All right, hello. Notes 4.8 here. I need to pull up more on the screen. Oops. Come on, get on the right screen. There we are. Um, Isosceles and equilateral triangles. Remember, we've had those definitions before. Isosceles, equilateral. This one reads, recall that an isosceles triangle has at least two congruent sides. The congruent sides I'll come down and give it to you in a minute. Okay. The congruent sides are called the, give me about 5 minutes, okay? Yeah, I'll come down there. The congruent sides are called the legs. The vertex angle is the angle formed by the legs. So my legs are this side over here. See, it's marked with a tick mark. And this side here, it's marked with a tick mark. The vertex angle would be this angle number 3. It's the angle formed by those legs. Keep reading. The opposite side, the vertex angle, the side opposite the vertex angle is called the base. So this base right here is this side right there. And the base angles, switch colors here, the base angles, there's two of them, would be angle 2 and angle 1. Angle 3 is the vertex angle, and angles 1 and 2 are the base angles. So lots of vocabulary here. Let's review that as we move on. Here's some theorems dealing with isosceles triangles. Theorem 481, isosceles triangle theorem. If two sides of a triangle are congruent, in other words, if you have a isosceles triangle, then the angles opposite the sides are congruent. So if you look at this diagram, congruent, congruent, that means angle B and angle C would also be congruent. The next theorem is just the converse of that. It's backwards. It says if these angles are congruent, then we can add tick marks there and there. So really a pretty handy theorem. Here's some problems. Find the measure of angle F. Well, we have this triangle, and my vertex angle is 22. I got to find the measures of angle F. Well, remember that angle D and F would be congruent. So I'll add arc marks in there. And remember the rule of 180? All three angles add up to 180. So if I subtract that top angle of 22, that would give me, it'd be 158. That means I have 158 degrees left over. And I have to split that evenly between D and F. So just divide it by 2. What's 2? How many times does 2 go into 158? That'd be 7, 14, 1, 8, 9. Yeah. So 79. That means that angle F is 79 degrees, and angle D is also 79 degrees. Well, it says find the measure of angle F, so my answer would be 79 degrees. Take a look at the next one. Find the measure of angle G. Well, notice this time that there's a tick mark and there's a tick mark. That means this angle G and this angle J would be congruent. because the triangle looks like it's kind of turned right. It's turned on its side. Well, let's set up an equation. So I don't have numbers this time, so I can't use the rule of 180. I'm going to write 3x equals x plus 44. I'll be with you in a minute. Okay? Sorry. Give me about 10 minutes, okay? Thanks. So, with that said, let's solve it for x. 3x is x plus 44. I want to subtract x from both sides to give me 2x equals 44. Divide by 2 to get x is 22. But don't stop there. I need to find the measure of angle G. So I'm going to take this x plus 44, plug in the 22. So 22 plus 44 would be 66 degrees. And that would be my answer. Let's move on. Find the measure of angle H. Now this time I'm given an actual number, 48. So let's do it like we did 2 slides ago. We have to use the rule of 180. I'm going to subtract the vertex angle. Subtract that 48 from the top. That would give me 132. That means that 132 has to be split between this angle G. I'm going to add an arc mark there and an arc mark there for for H. So if I take 2 and divide it by 132, that's 6, that's 12, 66. That means that this angle H would be 66 degrees, and angle G would also be 66 degrees. So my answer up here says find the measure of angle H. My answer would be the 66. The next slide, we've done this before, but let me point out to you these tick marks. Notice where they are. Excuse me. So that means this angle and this angle would be my base angles. I add the arc marks in there so we can tell if they are equal. Do you know what you get when you cross Lassie with the petunia? What do you get when you cross Lassie with the petunia? That would be a cauliflower. A cauliflower. I don't know how many of you get that. What do you call a cat who's been thrown into the dryer? Fluffy. A cat in the dryer would be called Fluffy. Yeah. Anyway, back to our problem here. Let's see. N and P would be equal, so let's write an algebra equation. I could write 6y equals 8y minus 16. Need to solve that. So let's see. Subtract 8y, it looks like, from each side. Watch your negatives. Negative 2y would be negative 16. Divide by negative 2. So y is 8. But don't stop there. I'm asked to find the measure of angle N, which is 6y. So I have to take 6 times 8. So my answer would be 48. Okay, that takes care of isosceles triangles. Let's now talk about equilateral. Next slide. This reads, the following corollary and its converse show the connection between equilateral triangles and equiangular triangles. And this reads, if a triangle is equilateral, then it is equiangular. In other words, if we're given that all 3 sides are congruent, we can automatically assume that all 3 angles would be congruent. If the sides are congruent, then the angles have to be congruent. On the next slide, we just say that the other way around. The next slide says if it's equal angular, then it's equilateral. In other words, say it the other way around. If all three angles are congruent, then we can assume that all three sides would also be congruent. That's for equilateral and equal angular. On the next slide, find the value of x. Notice we have these tick marks. 3 tick marks. That means it's equilateral. Well, that means I can go ahead and put in 3 arc marks. Well, those arc marks, remember that all 3 angles add up to 180. And if I divide that equally between 3 angles, that's 60. That means that this angle is 60, and this angle is 60, and the top angle has to be 60. So find the value of x. I simply can write 2x plus 32 equals 60. Let's solve that. Subtract 32. So 2x would equal 28. Excuse me, didn't mean to sneeze on microphone. Divide by 2. X would be 14. And the directions say find the value of x, so I don't need to plug that in anywhere. 14 is where I'll stop. A couple more slides to go. This slide, find the value of x again. Oops, that's the same one. Here we go. Find the value of y. Notice on this triangle, arc mark, arc mark, arc mark. Since all 3 angles are congruent, that means I can put in 3 tick marks. All 3 sides would then be congruent. Well, to set up an equation, I would simply write 5y minus 6 equals 4y plus 12. And then solve that. Let's see. Looks like I want to subtract 4y from each side. So I get y minus 6 equals 12. Add 6 to both sides. 18. 6 plus 12 is 18. One more. Oops, I'm going to go there. All right, find the value of JL. Now that tells me that I'm going to have to plug in my value of T here in a moment. Find the value of JL. Well, if I look at the triangle, I see 3 arc marks. That means it's equal angular. So I can go ahead and add in 3 tick marks. That means all 3 sides are congruent, so I can write the equation. 4t minus 8 would equal 2t plus 1. And let's solve this. How about we subtract 2t from both sides? That would give me 2t minus 8 equals 1. When I add 8 to both sides, that gives me 2t would equal 9. Divide by 2, leave your answer as a fraction, 9/2. But don't stop with that answer of 9/2. I need to plug it into JL, which would be 2t plus 1, and plug in my 9/2. So I have 2 times 9/2 plus 1. Now when I do that, I can cross cancel my 2's to give me 9 plus 1, which is 10. The final answer is 10. Okay, that ends our discussion, our lesson here on isosceles and equilateral triangles, lesson 4.8. If you would, put a code word down at the bottom. Let's make our code word isosceles. So if you would, just write the word isosceles at the bottom of your paper on the front page. On page 1, the very bottom, code word isosceles. Hey, thanks for watching.